StrayAllDay.com.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is endure long enough to get noticed. Before we get started, I'll remind you of a couple things. First of all, my daily motivation, Monday motivation messages, guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day or your week, respectively. All you got to do to get these is be part of my texting community. It is free. Yes, free 99 to join. All you got to do is text me at my number 305-384-6894. And once we start sending those messages out again, you'll be getting them straight to your phone. You can even tell us how often you like to receive them. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. This is for high-level performers. I'm talking people who are top 2% or want to be top 2%. You want to perform at your highest possible level, maximize on your potential, squeeze all the juice out of your orange, so to speak. You want to do that consistently, and you want to produce more results in your life. If that sounds like what you're looking for, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can see more about what we're doing, what you get, and how to get started. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Getting into the topic, endure long enough to get noticed. This topic is about staying in the game, whichever game you happen to be in, and staying in that game long enough such that you can find opportunities for yourself if they don't happen to find you, as that usually doesn't happen for most people. And just staying in the game so that the opportunity can get to you or that you can get to it, one or the other. But if you're not in the game long enough, then often the opportunity misses you, not because it didn't want you, not because you couldn't have it, simply because you weren't around long enough. You just left the game too early. See, the person who you see who comes out of nowhere and puts themselves or their work out there and they immediately go viral, so to speak, and you can mean that literally or metaphorically, and they become popular within like 3 days or a month. That is a rare exception to the rule. People who just came out last week and all of a sudden they have 1,000 times more followers than you or someone who's been out for 10 years, that's a rare exception. That does not happen every day. You should not expect that to be happening, nor should you be judging yourself based on what happened with that person, because that usually doesn't happen with most people. All right, you shouldn't be judging yourself against the outliers who happen to get this like literal overnight success. Some people get literal overnight success. Most of the people who you believe are overnight successes, it's like a 10-year, 20-year night before they got that quote unquote overnight success. But there are some people who can get overnight because in the world that we live in today, something can go viral and somebody can blow up in a very short period of time. I want you to understand that's not the norm, and you shouldn't be judging yourself against them. You shouldn't be looking at them and saying, well, damn, why didn't that happen to me? What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. Something is wrong with the matrix, and that they were able to break through. Again, it's an exception, is a blip on the radar, a glitch in the system. That is not what should be your expectation. So you need to commit yourself instead to the normal way that things are going to happen. That happen for most people means you got to commit yourself to consistent effort and the tedium of discipline necessary to achieve long-term success. Every long-term success, not almost rather, but every long-term success that is out there that you know of that is a real long-term success, there has been a commitment of tedium, a commitment of discipline, a commitment of consistently doing the work that has led to that outcome, regardless of what the work was. Now, there are different ways to do the work. There are different processes to follow. There is no one who has achieved consistent long-term success without consistent long-term effort. Nobody. That does not happen. That you can get it overnight and then you just stay successful throughout without doing any work. The work has to be done. That has to be paid for. Usually it's paid for up front. There are some exceptions of people who get to pay for it on the back end, but guaranteed, everybody pays. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is endure long enough to get noticed. Number one, life is short and long at the same time. Life is short and long at the same time. So how is that for a paradox for you? You need to behave. What I mean by this is you need to behave with urgency as if there is no more time left. While at the same time, you need to be looking at the big picture as if you'll be around for another 100 years. And even if you won't be around for another 100 years, whatever work you do while you're alive, hopefully that will be around for another 100 years. So even if it's not you, make sure your work will stand the test of time, even if you don't. So you need to think with urgency and behave urgently as if you're short on time, because you are short on time. But also think about, okay, 100 years from now, when I'm not around to defend my stuff, will my stuff be able to speak for itself? Whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's your legacy, the memories you leave behind, the stuff that you create, the products you put out, whatever it is. You need to think short term and long term at the same time. There is a mental and emotional balance to be struck in doing this. And this is all managed by, guess what? Discipline. The discipline to show up every day and do the work as if you don't have time to waste. And the discipline to understand that you may be around for a long time. And even if you're not, the stuff you do and the things you create, they will be around for a long time, hopefully. So your daily actions must build towards not only today's success, but tomorrow's success. This is the discipline. And you have both of these things in mind at the same time. That's the discipline. This is respecting the fact that life is short and life is long. Remember that you will be metaphorically old longer than you will be metaphorically young. So while you have the time and the energy of youth, make sure you are setting yourself up for your later years when you may not have the same resources or the same energy that you have now. You may not have the same time. You may not be able to just get up and go 30 years from now the way you can get up and go today, which means you need to take advantage of your ability to get up and go now while you still can, before you get to the point you can't just get up and go. And there are things that your brain tells you to do, but your body says that ain't happening anymore. Are you going to be that person longer? Or are you going to be the person you are now? That's the urgency of right now, but also at the same time, setting yourself up so that when you get to that point, you don't have to do that. You don't have to get up and go because you already took care of it in the earlier years. You get what I'm saying here? So while you have the time and the energy of youth, set yourself up for the future. Because again, you may not have that time or that energy later on. In your personal and professional lives, you want to look for work to do now that has a long tail. Long tail means you'll be able to benefit from today's efforts long into the future. That's what a long tail is, meaning the work that you do is not just beneficial right now in the moment, but it actually will be paying you long after it's over. That's the kind of work you want to be doing. Long after you're done doing the work, it's still producing for you. That's what I'm calling long tail work. Some people use other terms to describe this, but we're talking about the same thing. You can do this with products and services that you create, with strategies and systems that you use to get yourself and your stuff out to the world. You can do this through your relationships that you build. You can do this through the skills that you develop. But you want to look at, how can I do something that's going to be worth it 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? It will still be producing for me even after I've finished doing the work. In the business world, you hear people talking about this all the time. But you need to think about how this can apply in your personal life and your professional life, as well as if you're an inventor or you're creating something like a startup. Yes, they're thinking about that, but also want you to be thinking about how does this apply even outside of things that make money, but things that will still be paying you back. There's a lot of ways to get paid back in life besides just money. Money's one of them, but there are other ways as well. I want you to think about all of that. Point number 2, today's topic, once again, is endure long enough to get noticed. Number 2, because of the deluge of material, content, ideas, and sheer people out there these days, and there are a lot of us, the world's population is growing very quickly. It is hard to get noticed immediately just because you put something out into the world. That's why I just told you in the intro that it's the rare exception of a person who just comes out today and then tomorrow they're famous. It does happen, but that's a rare exception because there are so many people out there. It's hard to just immediately get seen. As a matter of fact, the day that I'm recording this, I've been following this documentary on Amazon Prime. It came out actually several years ago, but I had never looked at it. It's called, let me see what the name of it is. I forgot the name of it. It's called American Playboy. It's the Hugh Hefner story. It's actually a really good story. There's a combination of people acting out, but it's kind of like a docudrama where they're documenting Hugh Hefner's rise and how he built the Playboy business. And they have actors showing certain parts of it, but then you have actual Hugh Hefner interviews and people who worked with Hugh and all that stuff. There is like spliced in between. It's like 50-50 while the story goes on. They're explaining how Hugh Hefner built Playboy into what it became. And back then, I'm bringing that up to say, because back then, Hugh Hefner at one point he got interviewed by, what was that guy? I believe it was Mike Wallace. This is Mike Wallace on one of the 3 networks back then, because this is back at the time when television was just starting to pop off, because Playboy came out like in the 50s and the 60s. And at the time, there were only 3 networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. There were only 3 TV networks. So if you got on one of those 3 TV networks, you could become very famous in a very short period of time, because human beings, many of us had TVs, but there weren't so many options to choose amongst. So the audience was not diluted. The audience was very concentrated in 3 specific spaces. So at that time, you could become really popular really quickly just by putting something out if you were able to get on one of those places. Now, these days, anybody can put anything out from anywhere. Like, there are literally 8 billion people with, I'm going to say 8 billion. Not everybody has a phone, but let's just say 1 billion people have the ability to broadcast any message anywhere at any time that they want. So it's very hard to get a concentrated amount of people's attention because there are so many different ways the attention can be spread out because there's so many people publishing. So that's why it's a lot harder to get immediately noticed in the world today. Sometimes, most of the time actually, you got to stay in the game long enough for your material to surface and for other people to finally take note of it. Your stuff just has to surface in other people's minds. So, for example, this show has been out for years. The show has been out for 8 years as of this recording, 8+ years as of this recording. But there are people who want the type of material, there are people who want the type of material that I'm sharing on the show, but they simply have never heard of me. So part of that is our job to making sure that people who need this show actually find out about it and they can consume it. But also another part of it is sometimes people are just looking through so much stuff and there's so much stuff hitting them in the head every day that they can't even get through they can't cut through the fat and finally get to my stuff. They eventually will. I got to stay in the game long enough that when they finally do find me, I'm still giving them some value and they can say, okay, I'm glad I found this show. Wish I found it earlier, but glad I found it now. You got to stay in the game. There's somebody out there who needs what you're offering, but they didn't find you today, but they might go looking for you tomorrow. Hopefully you're available. They might come looking for you in 3 months. Hopefully you're still in the game. They might come looking for your stuff in a year. Hopefully you're still around to be offering something. And when they come to your platform, whatever it is, you're actively out there. You don't want to miss that boat. You don't want to miss that opportunity when it comes. And opportunity doesn't always come when you want it to come, but it comes when it comes. And you got to be ready when it does. And know what they say, when preparation, that's you being ready, meets opportunity, that's someone looking for you, the outcome is luck. So you got to stay in the game long enough for this to happen. And again, the fact that your stuff maybe hasn't surfaced for the right audience yet is not a reflection on the quality of your material. It's more about the fact that there's just so much of it out there that you can get lost in the abyss if you don't have all the attention or you don't stay in the game long enough. You can get lost in the abyss forever. You can drown in the abyss if you quit the game. As long as you stay in the game, though, you'll have an opportunity to get seen. All right, there are, I believe, I was reading this data in an episode I did maybe a week or two ago. There are about 4 million, a little over 4 million registered podcasts on the planet as of last week when I was recording that previous episode. And out of those 4 million, about 250,000 are active, meaning they're actively publishing new episodes. So 250,000 out of 4 million, that's one out of, I believe that's 4, 8, 12, 1 out of 16. 1 out of 16 podcasts is actively publishing. Of all the podcasts that are out there, 1 out of 16 is actually publishing. So let me make sure I got my numbers right. So we got 4 million and I said 250,000. Yes. Type numbers in wrong. 250,000 and 4 million shows. Yes. That's 6%. Let me do that one more time. Make sure my math is right. Yet 6%. 6% of shows, published podcasts, are actively publishing in the game. So all you got to do is be one of the 6% who just stays in the game. You don't have to do anything special. You just got to stay in the game. So I've been publishing content, as I said, for 2 decades. And I've never had any material go viral. Never had anything just blow up overnight. But if you add up the results of all the material that I put out, my entire career has gone viral, but it took 2 decades to go viral. And the reason that happens is because I stayed in the game long enough. I stayed in the game and kept playing and will remain in the game and keep playing so that people who don't know about me today, maybe 5 years from now or tomorrow or 20 years from now, they do find out about me because my material is going to be out there to be findable. And I'm findable because I'm active in the game. I will have enough material out there that it's possible 20 years from now, somebody will come find me, even if I maybe am not actively creating new stuff. I think I maybe will be when I'm in the early 60s. Maybe I will still be. We'll see. But my material will be findable even if I stop publishing. This is the way that I want you to think in your industry and about your material, even if you don't do the same thing. So sometimes a person or a thing can be really good. It just needs space and opportunity to get noticed by people who are being inundated with everybody else's stuff. This is just the way that it goes sometimes. Sometimes TV shows, it works this way, or a series. The TV show The Wire, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I don't watch a lot of TV, but The Wire is one of my favorite shows. It was into maybe season 3 or 4. I think The Wire went either 5 or 6 seasons overall. It was into maybe season 3 or 4 before it really started to pick up steam and people started to notice, like, hey, this is a pretty good show. People should come watch this. It didn't immediately just blow up like, let's say, The Sopranos. When it first came out, everybody jumped on it. But when The Wire first came out, it was, for the most part, ignored. and they both were on the same network, HBO. But it wasn't until, again, the second half of its existence that people started to notice The Wire, and then they started picking it up from the beginning, and then it became like this cult classic type of show that it became. And that may be the same thing with you. You just need the space and opportunity to get noticed. So not everybody has it the easy way. Sometimes you got to do it the hard way. And as long as you're willing to do the work and you're a high level performer, there should be no problem with you doing things the hard way. And don't complain when things don't go easy for you. It doesn't go easy for most people. It's just the easy ones you hear about because it's a sensational story. That doesn't mean that most people have it easy. So don't go around bitching and whining because it's not easy for you. It's not easy for almost everybody. So of course there are things you want to do to market yourself and your material and whatever work you're doing to get attention as quickly as possible. We all want to do that, but it doesn't mean it's all going to happen today just because you started trying to push yourself. Right? It doesn't mean it's going to happen. So you want to try to get as much of attention as you can right now, with the respect to the fact that you might not get it and you still want to be findable tomorrow. So even if you don't go viral today, you still want to be findable tomorrow. Even if you never go viral, like me, you still want to be in a position where you can be found by the right people in due time. You just got to be in the game when they come looking for you. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is endure long enough to get noticed. Number 3, most people who you see and look up to as successful are people who have been in the game much longer than you think they've been in the game. They may be new to you, but they are not new to themselves. They've been in the game longer than you think, and they've been in the game longer than you have personally known about them, definitely. And there was a long period for many people when they were a nobody long before they became a somebody. Again, the stories you hear about are the people who come out of nowhere. They just came out last Tuesday and all of a sudden they're a household name. Those are the ones you hear about. Those are the exceptions. Most people, it doesn't happen that way. They were a nobody for 20 years. And then for the last 2 years, everybody knew about them. So you think they came out 2 years ago. No, they came out 22 years ago. You just heard about them 2 years ago. In 2012, I was at the Miami Dolphins practice facility down here in South Florida. And I was recording a video for this series that I used to do called The Weekly Motivation on YouTube. I was recording a video with this guy named Eric Thomas, also known as E.T. Many of you know who Eric Thomas is. He's a black guy. I guess you can call him a motivational speaker. He wears the snapback hat or fitted hat, whatever, every time he does his videos and his content, even his speeches. He doesn't wear suits. He wears his T-shirt and he wears his hat. And I was doing this video with ET. I was setting up the camera to record this video. And you can find this video. It's on YouTube. Just look up Dre Baldwin, Eric Thomas. You'll see the video. And as I'm setting up the tripod and the camera, I was just small talking with Eric. And I said, and mind you, this is like 2012. And I said to him, hey, when did you start speaking? And I figured he had come out maybe 2010, 2009. Because he had this video that he was talking in a school, maybe a high school, and he had did the speech that really made him blow up. When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you'll be successful. And that video kind of made him blow up. And that had happened around 2010. So I asked him, did you just start speaking in 2010? He said, Dre, no, I ain't start speaking in 2010. I've been speaking since 1992. All right, that's what he told me off camera before we started recording. And then when we recorded, he brought that up in the video. So if you watch the video, you'll hear him say that. He said, Dre thought I came out in 2010. I came out in 1992. Nobody knew who he was for 18 years. Then that one video blew up. And that wasn't even his video. That's the funny thing about it. If any of you know who I'm talking about, you know Eric Thomas, that video that he first blew up off of, that video was not even posted on his YouTube channel. Someone else posted that video on their channel, but then that channel didn't blow up. What happened is people said, who is that guy talking? And then everybody found out who he was. Then people went and looking for him, and then he capitalized on that, built his YouTube channel, and now the rest is history. The point being, he was out for damn near 2 decades, and nobody knew who he was. Then all of a sudden, everybody knew who he was. And again, most people thought, like I did, oh, you just came out 2 years ago. No, came out 20 years ago. You just heard about me 2 years ago. That's the same thing. That's a mindset you need to have. So most people who you know of today, known people, they were a nobody for a really long time before you knew their names. All right, the people who come out of nowhere and go viral in a month, all right, they are few and far between. They are exceptions. Do not compare yourself to them, and do not look at them and think that that's what you're supposed to do. All right, so most of the time, you got to be around for a long time, consistently doing your work before you get quote unquote discovered. That's how it works. If you are not willing to do this, you're not willing to sign up for this, even if maybe you'll get lucky. But if you're not willing to sign up for this kind of discipline, find something in which you are willing to do that. Find some space in which you are willing to do the work. And many of you are listening to this right now who have built a career in something. I'm saying you built a career. Like you started from pretty much the starting point, the entry level point, and now you're a quote unquote somebody. Were you a nobody for a pretty long time before people started to know who you were? See, you understand this message and you appreciate it because you know what it took to get from where you were to where you are. Any of you who's built a career in something, you know what it is. And I talk to most of the members that work on Your Game University, people who I talk to, many of them are around my age or older. I'm talking people who are like 35 and up. We have people who are younger than that, but a lot of people in our university are 35 and up. Man, they've been building careers for at least a decade. And they all know what it was like when they first started out in whatever space that they're in. They had to start at zero and they had to work their way up. And maybe now they're starting to get some recognition. Maybe now they're getting to the point that they're getting promotions and they're starting to get more, let's say, what's the word? More returns for the work that they're doing. But for a long time, there were no returns. There was no recognition. They were a relative nobody. I'm not saying they weren't doing their thing, but they were a relative nobody. But for the most part, they were unrecognized. Even in their own industry, they were unrecognized, let alone by innocent bystanders who know nothing about the space. Are you willing to do that work? If you're not willing to, find a space in which you are willing to do the work, because this is going to be required. Every space, this is required. There are no exceptions, except for the exceptions that you know about. Again, those are few and far between. So don't think that you're going to be that. One of the main reasons most people do not stay in the game for long is because they get discouraged when they don't get immediate success, because you are of this false belief that that's how it's supposed to go. And then the other reason people jump out is because they see that, oh, it might be a long time before I get the results that I expected. That's why I'm telling you this now, so that you don't get fooled. You don't get in the game with the improper expectations. There's not only a lack of discipline that is belied when they do this, but there's also a mental softness on the part of many people as a result of having, again, improper and poor expectations for how things are going to go and how quickly your efforts are going to turn into success. See, when you understand this, then it won't bother you when you see that you don't immediately, your YouTube channel didn't immediately blow up. Or you didn't immediately get 1 million subscribers because you put out 10 videos in 10 days. All right, it doesn't happen that way most of the time. Any success that is worthwhile in life requires a period of deep investment of time, money, attention, energy, and focus. These are your 5 forms of investment. This one does not have an exception. Any exception you think you are noticing either is not the full picture or is an exception that further proves the rule. But there are generally no exceptions to this. All that said, let's recap today's class, which is endure long enough to get noticed. This is about staying in the game, whichever game you're in, and staying in it long enough such that you can find opportunities for yourself if they don't find you immediately. Point number 1, life is short and also long at the same time. So you need to be thinking with urgency and also thinking long term when it comes to achieving your outcomes, thinking that you don't have time to waste, but also knowing that you may be around for a long time. So make sure the work you're doing now will pay you back in spades in the future. Number 2, because of the deluge of material content, ideas, and sheer people out there these days, it is not a reflection on the quality of your work that you don't immediately get noticed. Just the fact that people had to cut through so much stuff just to find you, and you had to stay in the game long enough to where people can find you. Number 3, most people who you see and look up to as successes were a nobody much longer than they've been as somebody. You may think that they just came out 2 years ago because that's when you found out about them, but they actually were out for 20 years before you found out about them in the first place. And during that time, nobody knew who they were, but they kept doing the work. And that's what separated them from everybody else who may have had even more ability, but didn't have the discipline and endurance to stay in the game. So with all that said, make sure you text me so you're in my community. My number's down below in the description. Also, Work on Your Game University. Have me as your direct coach. Work with me directly. Get access to all of our courses, all of our trainings, and the new stuff that we add. That's all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all